The starship Horizon glided silently through the lavender skies of Gerin V. Captain Elias Morin stood at the viewing port, taking in the surreal beauty of the alien world. Rolling green hills shimmered with bioluminescent grass, and rivers sparkled like liquid crystals under the planet's twin suns. He had visited many worlds, but Gerin V felt different, alive, almost sentient. Elias adjusted his formal uniform, the sleek black fabric bearing the insignia of the United Earth Federation. He was humanity's first interstellar ambassador, sent to establish peaceful relations with the Farnai, a mysterious and advanced alien species known for their isolation. The weight of his mission pressed heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about diplomacy. It was about humanity proving it belonged among the stars. As the shuttle descended onto the Farnai capital, Elias saw the city unfurl like a giant flower. The buildings were organic, grown rather than built, and glowed softly in shades of blue and gold. A crowd of Farnai awaited him, their elegant forms standing tall and serene. Their skin shimmered like liquid silver, and their large, luminous eyes reflected the colors of their surroundings. Among them, one figure stood out. Leithera. She was taller than the others, her shimmering form more vibrant, as if she carried the essence of Gerin V within her. As Elias stepped onto the soft, moss-like ground, she approached with a calm grace that made him instinctively straighten his posture. "Welcome, Captain Elias Morin," she said in perfect English, her voice melodic yet firm. "I am Leithera, High Mediator of the Farnai. It is rare for us to receive visitors." Elias nodded respectfully. "Thank you for allowing me to be here. I hope this is the start of a friendship between our people." Leithera tilted her head, studying him with a gaze that felt like it could see past his words and into his very thoughts. "Friendship is a fragile thing, Captain. It requires trust, understanding, and time. But perhaps with patience, even the most unlikely bonds can be forged." Elias smiled faintly. "I believe so too." The formalities gave way to a tour of the city. Leithera guided him through the luminous streets, explaining how the Farnai lived in harmony with their environment. Their technology was astonishing, blending seamlessly with nature. Organic structures responded to their touch, and the air was filled with a soothing hum that Elias could almost feel in his chest. But not everything was serene. Elias noticed the wary glances from some Farnai as they passed. Whispers in their language, too quick to decipher, hinted at unease. Later, in the Grand Council chamber, Leithera addressed the gathered leaders. "The human seeks peace, but peace requires more than words. It requires trust. Can we trust them?" Elias felt the tension in the room but stood firm. He wasn't here to win hearts in a day. He was here to plant the seeds of connection. And as Leithera's gaze met his once more, he sensed that she, at least, was willing to give him a chance. The council chamber was a masterpiece of Farnai design. Its walls shimmered like liquid gold, subtly shifting colors as if alive, reacting to the emotions of those within. Elias stood at the center, his every word carefully chosen, but the atmosphere remained heavy with skepticism. The Farnai elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions calm but unreadable. Leithera stood beside him, her presence a mix of authority and quiet strength. She turned to address the council, her voice resonating with a melodic clarity. "Captain Elias Morin speaks for his people. They come in peace, seeking to exchange knowledge and build bridges across the stars. Is this not what we have long spoken of, seeking harmony beyond our borders?" An elder with a crest of silver patterns on their head leaned forward. "Harmony, Leithera, is a delicate balance. Humanity's history, as we have observed, is filled with conflict. Can they bring peace, or will they bring war to our lands?" Elias felt the weight of their words but remained calm. "Every species has its struggles, its mistakes," he said, meeting the elder's gaze. "But humanity has also shown resilience, creativity, and the ability to learn. We seek to understand, not conquer, and we believe that together we can achieve things neither of us could alone." The chamber fell silent. Elias could feel the unspoken doubts lingering in the air, but he could also sense Lathera's support beside him. After the council dismissed for the day, Lathera guided Elias through the city once more. They walked in silence for a while, the glowing streets casting soft hues across their faces. Finally, Lathera broke the quiet. "You handled yourself well," she said, her tone neutral. "The elders are not easily swayed." Elias let out a small, self-deprecating chuckle. "I noticed. I suppose centuries of isolation make anyone cautious." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "It is not just isolation. The Farnay have seen worlds fall, destroyed by greed, by the thirst for power. We have always believed our harmony is fragile, and we guard it fiercely." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I can't promise that humanity is perfect. We're far from it. But I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to prove we're worth trusting." Lathera studied him for a moment, her luminous eyes reflecting the soft glow of the city around them. "Words are easy, Captain. Actions will show us who you truly are." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a young Farnay messenger, who bowed quickly to Lathera. "Mediator, there is unrest in the southern districts. Some fear the presence of the human may bring harm." Elias tensed, but Lathera remained calm. "I will address it," she said, her tone firm. Turning to Elias, she added, "Stay here. I will handle this." Elias watched as she left, her elegant form disappearing into the glowing streets. He knew trust wouldn't come easily, but as he stood there, looking out at the alien city, he resolved to earn it, no matter how long it took. The next morning, Elias awoke to the soft hum of the Farnay city outside his temporary quarters. The bed, a strange blend of organic material, had adjusted perfectly to his body during the night. Despite the alien comforts, his mind was restless. The council's skepticism and the unrest Lathera had mentioned weighed heavily on him. When he stepped outside, he found Lathera waiting. Her silvery form seemed to glisten brighter in the sunlight, and her expression, while calm, carried a hint of weariness. "You didn't have to wait for me," Elias said with a small smile. "I wished to ensure you were well rested," she replied, her melodic voice steady. "Today, I will show you more of our world. If you are to build trust, you must first understand us." Their first stop was the central learning spire, a towering structure that pulsed with light. Inside, Elias marveled at the Farnay's approach to knowledge. Instead of books or screens, their history and science were stored in living crystals. Lathera explained how these crystals connected to the Farnay's neural patterns, allowing them to access vast amounts of information instantly. As Elias touched one of the crystals, it glowed faintly. Lathera watched him closely, a faint smile playing on her lips. "The crystal is reacting to your curiosity. It can sense your intentions." "Impressive," Elias murmured. "This kind of technology is beyond anything humanity has achieved. Your people's connection to nature is remarkable." Lathera inclined her head. "Our harmony with our environment has always been our strength, but it also makes us vulnerable. When balance is disrupted, the consequences can be catastrophic." They left the spire and ventured into the outskirts of the city. Here, the lush landscape was even more vibrant, with flowers that emitted soft, soothing melodies and trees that glowed faintly as the wind passed through their leaves. While walking, a sudden roar echoed through the air. Lathera froze, her gaze sharp. From the dense foliage, a massive creature emerged. It was a predator, its sleek, scaled body glinting in the sunlight. Its eyes locked onto them, and it let out a guttural snarl. Elias instinctively stepped in front of Lathera, drawing the small energy blade he always carried. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. Lathera seemed surprised but didn't argue. The creature lunged, and Elias moved swiftly, sidestepping its attack and slashing at its side. The predator roared in pain but didn't relent. Just as it prepared to strike again, Lathera raised her hands, her eyes glowing faintly. A wave of calming energy emanated from her, and the creature stopped, its aggression fading. It wasn't truly hungry, Lathera said softly, her voice almost sad. It was defending its territory. As the creature retreated, Elias turned to her. You could have stopped it earlier. Why didn't you? I wanted to see what you would do, she admitted, her expression unreadable. You protected me without hesitation. Perhaps there is more to humanity than the Council believes. Elias nodded, his respect for her deepening. For the first time, he felt they were truly beginning to understand one another. The tranquil hum of Gerin V was shattered by the sudden appearance of a massive, dark spacecraft, hovering just beyond the planet's atmosphere. Its jagged edges and ominous silhouette contrasted sharply with the organic beauty of the Farnai world. From the observation deck of the Farnai Council chamber, Elias stood beside Lathera, staring at the alien vessel through a translucent wall. That doesn't look friendly, Elias said, his voice low but steady. Lathera's glowing eyes narrowed as she focused on the ship. It is not. That vessel belongs to the Vexari, a nomadic species known for stripping planets of their resources. They are scavengers, ruthless and unrelenting. Elias frowned. Have they come here before? Never, she replied. Our isolation has kept us safe, until now. A sudden alert echoed through the chamber. A messenger approached, bowing quickly to Lathera. High Mediator, the Vexari have sent a message. They claim to come in peace, but their ships have begun deploying mining drones near the crystal veins. Lathera's face tightened, her normally serene expression replaced by concern. The crystal veins are sacred. They sustain much of our ecosystem. If those are disturbed, the balance of our world will collapse. Elias stepped forward. Then we need to act now. I've dealt with species like this before. They'll keep talking about peace while they take everything they can. Lathera hesitated. The Farnai are not a warrior people, Elias. Confrontation is not our way. Elias's jaw tightened. He respected their values, but the urgency of the situation couldn't be ignored. Sometimes, standing by isn't an option. You might not want to fight, but if you don't stop them, they'll destroy everything you've built. The council gathered once again, and the room buzzed with tension. The elders debated fiercely, some agreeing with Lathera's cautious approach, while others voiced their growing fear of the Vexari. As voices rose, Elias stood. With respect, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. If you wait too long, it'll be too late. The Vexari won't stop until there's nothing left. I'm not asking you to fight blindly, but I'm asking you to defend your home. I'll stand with you, if you'll let me. Lathera looked at him, her luminous eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. And what would you suggest, Captain? Elias took a deep breath. A surgical strike. We can disable their mining drones and send a clear message without starting an all-out war. My crew aboard the Horizon can provide the expertise, but we'll need your technology to make it work. The elders murmured among themselves. Finally, Lathera raised a hand, silencing the room. I will take responsibility for this decision. Captain Elias, we will work with you. But understand, if this fails, the blame will fall on both of us. Elias nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Understood. Let's make sure it doesn't fail. As plans were set into motion, Lathera turned to him. You're taking a great risk for a world that isn't your own. Why? Elias met her gaze. Because I believe in what your people stand for, and because some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost. For the first time, Lathera's stoic expression softened. Then let us hope your belief is not misplaced. Outside, the Vexari ship loomed like a predator waiting to strike. But for the first time, the Farnai were not entirely defenseless. The glow of Gerin V's twin moons cast long shadows across the Farnai Council chamber, where Elias and Lathera stood before a gathered group of engineers, scholars, and warriors. The air was tense, filled with uncertainty, but also a spark of determination that Elias hadn't seen before in the Farnai. "This plan is risky," said an elder with a deep, resonant voice. "We are placing our faith in the human, and our people do not yet trust him." Lathera stepped forward, her calm authority silencing the murmurs. "Captain Elias has offered us a solution. The Vexari drones are already drilling into the crystal veins. If we do not act now, the damage will be irreversible." She turned to Elias. "Explain your plan." Elias nodded and activated a holographic display from a small device on his wrist. A projection of the Vexari ship and its deployed drones floated in the center of the room. "We'll use your technology to amplify a pulse strong enough to disable the mining drones. My team aboard the Horizon can create the pulse generator, but we'll need your energy crystals to power it. It's precise, quick, and avoids direct confrontation with the Vexari, at least for now." A young Farnai engineer raised a hand. "But what if the Vexari retaliate? They will not take this as a simple warning." Elias met the engineer's gaze. "That's a possibility, but doing nothing guarantees the destruction of your world. At least this gives us a fighting chance." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Lathara, who took a deep breath before addressing the group. "I believe this is the right path. It is not in our nature to act with force, but our survival depends on it. If the council agrees, we proceed at once." One by one, the elders nodded, their reluctance giving way to grim resolve. Hours later, the operation was underway. The Horizon hovered just outside Geron V's atmosphere, while Elias worked alongside the Farnai engineers in the crystal fields below. The air was alive with energy as glowing crystals pulsed in rhythm with the team's efforts. Lathera observed Elias as he coordinated the setup. Despite the tension, he moved with a steady confidence that she found reassuring. "You seem calm, Captain," she said, stepping closer. "Not calm," he admitted with a faint smile. "Focused. I've learned that fear only gets in the way." She regarded him thoughtfully. It is strange to see a human so willing to protect a world not his own. Elias didn't look up as he adjusted a connection. "Some things are worth protecting. Your world is one of them. And maybe, so are you." Lathera's expression softened, but before she could respond, an alert echoed through the air. A scout rushed forward. "The Vexari drones are increasing their activity. They may have detected us." Elias stood quickly. "Then we're out of time. Is the pulse generator ready?" Lathera nodded. "It is." With the crystal-powered generator activated, a powerful energy wave rippled across the skies. Moments later, the Vexari drones sparked and fell lifeless to the ground, their operations grinding to a halt. Cheers erupted from the Farnai team, but Elias remained on edge. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Lathera stepped beside him, her gaze fixed on the Vexari ship still looming in the sky. "No, it's not," she agreed. "But tonight, we have shown them that we are not helpless." For the first time, Elias saw a flicker of resolve in her eyes. The Farnai had taken their first step toward fighting for their survival, and he was determined to stand with them, no matter what came next. The stars twinkled brightly in the night sky of Geron V, their light reflected in the crystalline rivers that flowed through the heart of the Farnai capital. For the first time in days, the air was quiet. The hum of the planet's natural rhythms had returned, soothing and melodic, as if the world itself was relieved. Elias stood on the edge of a glowing river, staring at his own reflection. The success of the pulse generator had been a critical victory, but he knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Vexari wouldn't back down easily, and he had no illusions about the challenges ahead. Lathera approached quietly, her footsteps barely audible on the soft, mossy ground. She stopped a few paces away, her silvery form glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You should rest, Captain. Tomorrow will bring more trials." Elias glanced over his shoulder, a tired smile on his face. "I could say the same to you. You've been running yourself ragged keeping the council together." She stepped closer, her serene gaze softening. "It is my duty to my people, just as it is yours to protect your crew and your mission. but even the strongest among us need moments of stillness. Elias chuckled lightly, the sound breaking the stillness of the night. You sound like my commanding officer. He always said I worked too hard. Lathera tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her luminous eyes. Your commanding officer, he must have been important to you. He was, Elias said, his voice quieter now. He believed in me, even when I doubted myself. He taught me that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about standing tall, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Lathera studied him for a moment, then turned her gaze to the river. Your resilience is remarkable. I've seen it in the way you approach every challenge. It's something we Farne do not possess, not in the same way. Perhaps that is why we feared humanity for so long. Your strength is unfamiliar to us. Elias hesitated, then spoke. Strength isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about knowing when to stop. I've learned it the hard way. Lathera looked at him, her expression unreadable. And yet, you stood against the Vexari without hesitation. You chose to protect a people not your own. Why? He met her gaze, his blue eyes steady. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I saw a world worth saving. And because I saw you. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The gentle sound of the river filled the silence between them. Finally, Lathera broke the stillness, her voice barely above a whisper. We belong to different worlds, Elias. Everything about us, our lives, our beliefs, even our existence, is so far apart. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe, but maybe that's why we're here, to find a way to bridge those worlds. She nodded slowly, her expression softening. Perhaps you're right. For now, let us hold on to this moment. Tomorrow, we will face the storm together. Under the twin moons of Jurin V, they stood side by side, two beings from different worlds, united by a bond that defied logic. And for a brief, fleeting moment, the storm seemed distant. The calm after the pulse generator victory did not last long. The Vexari ship remained in orbit, looming like a predator biding its time. Reports from scouts revealed that the invaders were regrouping, preparing to escalate their efforts. In the Farne Council chamber, the tension was palpable. They will retaliate, declared Elder Kaler, his voice tinged with fear. We have provoked them, and now they will come for us with greater force. This is why we should never have engaged with the human. Elias stood at the center of the room, the elders' gazes fixed on him like lasers. Lathera stood nearby, her expression calm, but her body radiating tension. I warned you this wouldn't be easy, Elias said, his voice steady but firm. The Vexari were never going to leave peacefully. The difference now is that you've shown them you're not helpless. That's the first step to survival. Survival? Kaler scoffed. You mean war. That is not the Farne way. Elias clenched his fists, struggling to keep his temper in check. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to adapt. If you don't, they'll take everything. Your resources, your homes, your lives. Do you really think they'll stop just because you refuse to fight? The room erupted into heated arguments. Some elders sided with Elias, recognizing the urgency of the situation. Others, like Kaler, remained staunchly opposed, unwilling to abandon their long-held pacifist traditions. Lathera finally raised her hand, her voice cutting through the chaos. Enough. The chamber fell silent as she stepped forward, her glowing eyes scanning the room. Elias speaks the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. The Vexari will not leave unless we make them. But this is not a decision for the Council alone. It is a decision for all Farne. I propose we put it to a vote. Let the people decide if they are willing to defend their world. The elders exchanged uncertain glances, but ultimately agreed. Later that evening, Lathera found Elias by the glowing river, where he often went to think. He was staring out at the water, his expression unreadable. You were harsh in there, she said softly, stepping beside him. They needed to hear it. Elias replied without looking at her. Sometimes the truth isn't gentle. Lathera studied him for a moment. You're frustrated. With them, and perhaps with me as well. Elias finally turned to face her, his blue eyes intense. I don't understand why you're hesitating, Lathera. You see what's happening. You know what's at stake. Why are you still holding back? She met his gaze, her expression conflicted. Because this is not just a fight for survival, Elias. This is a fight for our identity. If we abandon our principles, if we become like them, what will we have left to protect? Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're not becoming like them. You're defending what you stand for. There's a difference. Lathera hesitated, then spoke quietly. I want to believe that. But if this fails, the burden will fall on both of us. Can you live with that? Elias stepped closer, his voice firm. I can. The question is, can you? For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their choices pressing down on them. Finally, Lathera nodded, her resolve hardening. We will see what the people decide. And whatever they choose, I will stand by it. The night stretched on, heavy with uncertainty. The vote would come soon, and with it, the future of Geron V. But no matter the outcome, Elias knew one thing. He and Lathera were in this together, for better or worse. The Farnese decision came swiftly. After a planet-wide vote, an overwhelming majority chose to stand against the Vexari. It wasn't an easy choice. Centuries of pacifism weighed heavily on their hearts, but the will to protect their world, their families, and their way of life overcame their fear. Elias stood with Lathera in the bustling operations hub of the Farnai capital. Holograms of the planet and the Vexari ship hovered in the air, surrounded by engineers, strategists, and scouts. For the first time, the Farnai worked together with humanity, blending their unique strengths. Are we ready? Elias asked, scanning the room. Lathera nodded, her voice steady. Our forces are in position. The energy barriers around the crystal veins have been reinforced, and the pulse generator is primed for a second strike if needed. The Vexari won't take us by surprise this time. Elias glanced at her, impressed. You've come a long way since the first council meeting. She smiled faintly. And you've shown us that strength doesn't have to mean violence. It can mean resilience, unity, and courage. Now we must see if it is enough. The first wave of the Vexari assault began with precision. From their looming ship, they deployed advanced drones designed to dismantle planetary defenses. The drones moved quickly, their sharp mechanical forms cutting through the air like predators. Elias and Lathera stood together on a command platform, overseeing the defense. The Farnai had adapted their natural technology to create electromagnetic shields powered by the crystalline network. The shields shimmered as the drones struck, deflecting their attacks in bursts of brilliant light. Shields are holding, reported a Farnai technician, her voice tense but controlled. Elias nodded. Good. Activate countermeasures. Let's see how they handle a little disruption. Lathera raised her hand, and a wave of energy pulsed through the ground. Hidden beneath the surface, the Farnai's organic weaponry came to life. Vines infused with crystalline energy shot up, entangling and disarming the drones midair. The drones struggled briefly before falling lifeless to the ground. Cheers erupted in the control room, but Elias remained focused. This is just the beginning. They'll escalate. He was right. Moments later, the Vexari ship descended lower, deploying a larger fleet of drones and unleashing a series of energy blasts aimed at the capital. The ground shook, and alarms blared as the shield strained under the assault. Elias turned to Lathera. It's time. We need to hit them where it hurts. Lathera nodded, her expression resolute. The pulse generator is ready. Together, they activated the device. A massive energy wave surged upward, targeting the Vexari ship. The wave disrupted the ship's systems, causing it to falter. Inside the command room, cheers broke out as the ship's assault slowed. But the celebration was short-lived. The Vexari ship steadied itself, and a transmission crackled through the air. A deep, menacing voice echoed. "You dare to resist us? We will not forget this insult. Prepare for annihilation." Elias exchanged a glance with Lathora. "They're bluffing. They're desperate now." Lathora nodded, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. "Perhaps, but desperation can make an enemy even more dangerous." Outside, the combined forces of humans and Farnay held their ground. The Vexari, once thought invincible, were facing a united resistance that refused to yield. For the first time, the tide of battle seemed to favor the defenders. As the night stretched on, Elias felt a spark of hope. Together, humanity and the Farnay had proven they could stand against a greater foe. But the war was far from over, and the cost of victory was yet to be seen. The Vexari ship retreated at dawn, its engines flickering as it limped away into the void. The combined efforts of the humans and Farnay had forced them to retreat, but the cost was evident. The once pristine fields of Gerin V were scared, and the bioluminescent glow of the land seemed dimmer. Elias stood on a hillside overlooking the battlefield, his uniform dusty and torn. Around him, Farnay and human medics worked side by side, tending to the wounded. The air was heavy with exhaustion, but also with a faint sense of triumph. Lathora approached quietly, her elegant form glowing faintly in the early morning light. "The Vexari are gone," she said, her voice soft but firm. "For now." Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "They'll be back. Not soon, maybe, but they won't forget what happened here." "That much is certain," Lathora replied, her tone thoughtful. "But today, we have shown them that Gerin V is not defenseless, and we have shown ourselves that unity is possible." Elias turned to her, his expression serious. "You've changed, Lathora. When I first got here, you wouldn't have considered any of this. Now you've led your people through a battle and shown them what they're capable of." She met his gaze, her luminous eyes reflecting both gratitude and sadness. "And you, Elias, have shown us the strength that comes with conviction. But this victory came at a price. Many of my people believe we've lost something essential, our way of peace." Elias sighed, understanding her conflict. "Sometimes peace has to be protected, and that means making hard choices. But your people are still who they were. You'll find your way back to balance." Lathora looked out at the wounded and the ruins left by the battle. "Perhaps, but balance will take time and trust even longer. The elders are already debating whether this alliance with humanity should continue." Elias frowned. "I thought we'd proven ourselves." "You have," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "But proving yourselves in battle is not the same as earning trust. Some still see your people as a threat, a species too willing to fight, too quick to take." The weight of her words hung between them. Elias had known from the beginning that trust would be hard-earned, but hearing it now, after all they had been through, stung. "And what about you?" he asked quietly. "Do you believe we're a threat?" Lathora hesitated before replying. "I believe you are more than a threat. You are also a hope. You've shown us that courage and strength can coexist with compassion. That is something we must learn, and something you must not forget." Elias gave a faint smile. "I'll take that as a maybe." She stepped closer, her expression softening. "It's more than a maybe, Elias, but this is where our paths diverge. You've helped us find a new strength, but now we must rebuild, in our own way. And I need to return to my people," Elias said, his voice quieter now. "But this isn't goodbye, Lathora. Not forever." "No," she agreed, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Not forever." As the sun rose over the scared but resilient land, Elias and Lathora stood side by side one last time. They had come from different worlds, but for a moment they had found common ground, and though their paths would take them in different directions, they knew their bond would endure. For the first time in years, Elias felt hope, not just for humanity, but for something greater. Together, They had made a stand, and together they had glimpsed a future worth fighting for. The horizon was ready for departure. Its engines hummed softly, a stark contrast to the bustling activity in the Farnai capital below. Elias stood at the ramp of the ship, gazing out at the glowing city one last time. The damage from the Vexeri attack was still evident, but the Farnai had begun to heal their world, just as they were healing their spirits. Lathera approached, her movements graceful as always, though her expression was subdued. She stopped a few paces away, the shimmering light of Geron V casting an ethereal glow on her form. "So this is goodbye," she said softly. Elias turned to her, his face calm but his blue eyes filled with unspoken emotions. "For now," he replied. "But I don't think this is the end of our story." She tilted her head, her luminous eyes searching his. "You've done more for us than I can put into words, Elias. You brought us hope when we believed we had none. You showed us that unity isn't a weakness, it's a strength. And you reminded me why it's worth fighting for something bigger than yourself," Elias said. "Your world, your people, they've changed me too." Lathera stepped closer, her expression conflicted. "The Council has decided to keep the alliance with humanity, for now. But the road ahead will not be easy. Trust takes time to grow, and there are still many who fear your kind." Elias nodded. "I didn't expect this to be easy. Building bridges never is, but we've taken the first step, and that's what matters." She hesitated, as if weighing her next words carefully. "There's something I must ask you, Elias. If the Vexeri return, if our world is threatened again, will you come back?" His response was immediate. "You won't have to ask. You have my word. I'll be here." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The distant hum of the city and the soft rustle of crystalline leaves were the only sounds. Finally, Lathera spoke, her voice softer now. "We belong to different worlds, Elias. Everything about us is different. Our beliefs, our lives, even the way we see the universe. And yet," she paused, her luminous gaze meeting his, "I don't want to let you go." Elias's heart ached at her words. He reached out, his hand hovering just above hers, knowing that even a small gesture held great meaning between their species. "I don't want to go either. But sometimes, stepping away is the only way to move forward." She nodded slowly, understanding even if it pained her. "Then go, Elias. But remember this, no matter how far apart we are, the bond we've forged will remain. It will be a bridge between our worlds." Elias smiled, a bittersweet expression. "I'll never forget, and I'll find my way back to you someday." As the ramp of the horizon began to rise, Elias took one last look at Lathera. Her glowing form stood tall against the backdrop of her vibrant world, a symbol of resilience and hope. The ship ascended, carrying Elias away from Geron V. But in his heart, he knew this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something far greater. For while they belonged to different worlds, their connection had proven that even the vastness of space couldn't keep them apart forever.